G'day, good morning and aloha. 2021 feels like yesterday when we held our virtual conference in lieu of being in Hawaii, and now here we are gathered from all the corners of the world, either physically in this room or online. In setting the scene for the next 3 days, we thought we would take a moment to think about RB in the historical sense and acknowledge that even though we have a very long way to go, we can recognise the success story that it actually is. During my doctoral studies, I ended up down the rabbit hole of the history of RB and came to really appreciate what a fascinating history surrounded the RB story. I will be very brief, that's why I'm reading it, so that Abby White can continue the story of RB in the context of We See Hope and One Retinoblastoma World. The first reports of RB vary in the ancient literature, and it is sometimes difficult to determine whether what is being described is in fact RB or another cancer, rhabdomyosarcoma. However, in 1767, a letter from Mr. Hayes to Mr. Hunter, which was actually written in 1765, described a parent's observation which, more than 250 years later, is still a commonly encountered description. He wrote, "At the age of 15 months, the parents noted a peculiar appearance in the left eye in the evening when the light was not strong." Although there are random descriptions of what we think are possibly RB, as well as numerous but unsuccessful attempts at treatment, in 1809, Dr. James Wardrop recommended surgical removal of the eye, what we know as an enucleation. At that time, there was no general anaesthetic, and he was essentially ridiculed for suggesting such a treatment in the first place, particularly since the few children treated this way succumbed to their disease anyway. By the mid-1800s, though, 3 very important things happened. First, the introduction of anaesthesia in 1846 made enucleation possible and tolerable. Then in 1851, von Helmholtz invented the ophthalmoscope, a device that enabled tumours to be seen whilst still confined within the eye. So when a parent reported seeing something in their child's eye, the doctor could examine them. And then von Graefe, considered one of the founding fathers of ophthalmology, championed the surgical technique of removing as long a length of optic nerve as possible instead of cutting it flush with the globe. What he was doing was in fact getting a clear surgical margin. Taken together, these advances contributed to the beginning of children starting to survive. Another important factor was the realisation that perhaps RB could run in families. Starting with Lersch in 1821 through to 1872, Seychelles, von Graefe, Wilsons and de Gouvier independently reported some families where RB was seen to occur in multiple family members. And thus the thought that RB can be hereditary was born. And thus, because we now know the ability to diagnose and potentially successfully treat children, survival improved, guaranteeing future generations of children. Fortunately, this prompted the notion of screening siblings and offspring in the hope of an earlier diagnosis, which it did, and also the need for alternative treatments, since with screening, tumours were smaller and enucleation might be avoided. We are indebted to the early work of Alfred Knudsen in the 1970s for putting forward the theory of how retinoblastoma developed, requiring 2 genetic changes to occur, the 2-hit hypothesis. And he recognised the importance of trying to predict which children with unilateral disease had heritable RB. Soon after Knudsen's hypothesis, Ori and others found that children who were missing part of chromosome 13 also frequently developed RB. So X marked the spot on chromosome 13, and the race was on to find the gene that caused this disease. Within 11 years, the RB1 gene was discovered. Again, retinoblastoma was famous as being the first tumour suppressor gene to be described. More importantly, this discovery quickly translated to the clinical setting, forever changing the treatment landscape for patients with RB, their siblings or their offspring. But of course this only applies to countries where genetic testing is available. Led by our very own Brenda Galley, in 2013 another genetic cause for RB was found, amplification of the MICAN gene. But this one is not heritable. This was a very important finding as the clinical features of children with MICAN amplification included a very large tumour diagnosed at less than 6 months of age. Traditionally, RB in a child this young would previously have led us to believe that they likely had heritable RB. It has taken us a lifetime to get where we are today in the RB story, and there is still so much further to go. In the next few days, we will share further progress where there is still so much work to do, because you all know that it takes a lifetime to survive childhood cancer. It is now my pleasure to introduce my friend, Abby White, who joins us from Oxford to continue this story.
Aloha everyone. Thank you Sandra and team for inviting me to share a brief history of We See Hope and One RB World. I'm very sorry not to be joining One RB World in Hawaii. My guide dog and I were very much looking forward to the experience. Ritzy was diagnosed with a brain tumour in August, which radically changed my plans. I am joining virtually despite the 10-hour time difference, and I give an especially warm greeting to everyone joining from around the world. To tell our story, I must begin with my father. John was born in Kenya on Christmas Eve 1945. British doctors in Nairobi missed his leukocoria. The Kenyan doctor who diagnosed bilateral RB at 9 months old never used the word cancer, but he urged my grandparents to seek immediate care in England. Radiotherapy and bilateral enucleation saved his life, which he relished for 51 years. He died from a second primary cancer in August 1997, 1 month before my 21st birthday. I was born with bilateral RB, but I had swift access to free, expert care in England. Both my eyes were saved, with useful vision in my left. Still, the journey was long and painful, including radiotherapy, countless laser and cryotherapy treatments, and years of EUAs. My right eye was removed in 2002 due to treatment complications. Removing it in childhood may have reduced my EUA and treatment burden with a better fitting prosthetic eye and cosmetic outcome. Vision in my left eye is failing due to late effects of radiotherapy. Growing up, I was acutely aware of my family's heightened emotions, but unable to understand them or recognise and articulate my own trauma. Those early experiences still impact me and my family in many ways. In September 2003, I experienced a violent event that upended my life. Trying desperately to hold myself together, I created a distraction project in a website providing RB resources and family stories. On September 29, 2004, I received a brief email from Salome, a mother in Botswana, asking for information, advice and prayer. 2-year-old Harata Punyane, Rati, had her left eye enucleated for unilateral RB 19 months earlier, but without care based on pathology, the cancer had returned. I tried to imagine how I would feel if driven to ask strangers for help, knowing that without treatment, my precious child would be condemned to a slow, agonizing death. I had to do something, so I began reaching out to many RB centres. Though St Jude Children's Research Hospital couldn't treat Rati, they prevented an orbital exenteration surgery, which is not advised for RB. From Memphis, ocular oncologist Matt Wilson connected with Rati's doctor in Botswana minutes before the surgery was due to begin, sparing her unnecessary trauma and pain. Dr. Brenda Galley offered treatment at Toronto's Hospital for Sick Children if we could get Rati to Canada. We then received a huge gift from the Lloyd family in England, Daisy had recently returned home from treatment at Sick Kids. Her parents wanted to share with Ratty's family the hope they had received when Canada offered the only potential for saving Daisy's last eye. With their large donation, we founded Daisy's Eye Cancer Fund in England and Canada. Little did we know where their act of grateful generosity would lead. Ratty received radiotherapy and chemotherapy in Toronto and her first prosthetic eye. For more than a year, tests showed no evidence of disease. But late diagnosis, limited expertise, and lack of family support in Africa sealed her fate before her first birthday. She died on August 21, 2006, aged 4 years. Harata means to love in Setswana. Our beautiful, beloved Ratty challenged us to address the huge global disparities in RB care. For many reasons, Brenda and I began in Kenya, and the Kenya National RB Strategy was founded in her memory in 2008. The KNRBS is a multidisciplinary team, groundbreaking for including parents and survivors. Over 5 years, the group developed evidence-based care guidelines tailored specifically for Kenya. Annual meetings helped everyone identify existing resources and needs, discuss challenges and solutions, develop collaborations, and agree guidelines based on published evidence and consensus. The sense of urgency was palpable, with diagnosed children and siblings present, parents and survivors sharing their experiences and helping to redefine care, all of us knowing that lives hung in the balance. In 2009, we brought the first RetCam to Africa with Orbis and Clarity Medical Systems. Capturing high-resolution images of the eye was revolutionary for collaborative care, telemedicine, and supporting parents' decision-making. We also equipped the Retinoblastoma Collaborative Laboratory, a new pathology service in Nairobi, and facilitated national ocular pathology training. The KNRBS improved communication between ophthalmologists and pathologists, and all these innovations quickly reduced turnaround time for critical post-enucleation care decisions from more than 6 months to less than 2 weeks. I was keen that we include psychosocial care in Kenya, motivated by my family's experience and the support Daisy and Ratty received in Canada from child life specialist Morgan Livingston. With KNRBS backing, Morgan launched Africa's first child life training program in 2008. Kenya now leads the world in training professionals to deliver child and family-focused healthcare supports in low-resource settings. Child life specialists trained through Kenya's program raise quality of life for children with cancer and their families in Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, and Malawi. We were devastated in March 2019 when Jane Kamau, one of our most experienced child life specialists in Eldoret, and Bella Jaboma, our leading child life advocate in Nairobi, were killed aboard Ethiopian Airlines Flight ET302. They were returning home with childhood cancer doctor Grace Kariuki after presenting on RB child life and family supports at the International Society of Pediatric Oncology Africa Congress. All our child life work in Africa honours their memory and dedication to the childhood cancer community. Increased awareness and advances in imaging, pathology, treatment, child life, and much more empower Kenya to diagnose RB earlier and deliver personalised care, significantly improving outcomes. In 2008, only 26% of children survived. Today, 70% of children are cured. The Kenyan guidelines for RB care were adopted by the Ministry of Health in 2015 and incorporated into the National Cancer Strategy. You can read the updated 2019 guidelines at the African Research Universities Alliance using the on-screen short link weseehope.org/KNRBS 2019. In 2005, I began receiving frequent requests for help from parents and survivors around the world, particularly from the USA. It became clear there was a gap in support and advocacy across the pond. So I asked several parent and survivor friends to help me found the US chapter of Daisy's Eye Cancer Fund. Since 2012, we have provided education, advocacy, practical advice, and emotional support. Marissa and her team will tell you much more over the next few days. In 2015, we rebranded to World Eye Cancer Hope, reflecting our evolution from one child to a global mission. Today, We See Hope works with organisations and people across individual countries and worldwide who share our goal of early diagnosis and optimal care for all children, survivors, and families throughout life. I began attending medical meetings that included RB, but I was frustrated by the lack of focus on psychosocial and lifelong aspects of the cancer. I saw that we needed a space where clinicians, researchers, families and survivors could meet on equal footing, share diverse perspectives, and explore common concerns and potential solutions together. I hosted the first One RB World meeting in London just before the CEOP 2012 World Congress, with 60 participants from 26 countries. The children's programme was led by Bilateral RB survivors and early years teachers Jana Torka and Stephanie Argyrikis. Steph died in August 2022 from orbital osteosarcoma after a tenacious 5.5-year fight for her life. The conference has continued to grow, meeting in Toronto, Dublin, Washington DC, and 2 virtual conferences during the pandemic. We See Hope USA hosted the 2017 event in Washington DC, along with the first National RB Family Day. Under Marissa's leadership, this fabulous event fueled the growth of regional RB and Survivor Family Days across America. Our hybrid format also began in 2017, when travel from certain Islamic countries was denied. To ensure global access, We See Hope USA secured funding to live stream the programme. This laid an easier way through our 2 virtual conferences, and is now a key part of fostering global equity, inclusion, connection, and collaboration. I'm thrilled that One RB World is back in person, and our growth continues in Honolulu. In-person attendance and Child Life Programme enrolment have both doubled since our last in-person meeting in Washington, D.C., with 170 participants gathered together in Hawaii from 6 continents. This week's Child Life Programme is dedicated to the memory of RB Mum and We See Hope USA Director Lisa Hester. A keen advocate of child life supports for her children and others, Lisa died unexpectedly on July 31st. In her memory, we advocate for the integration of child life into all aspects of RB patient care across the USA and beyond. If you are in Honolulu, please visit the programme to experience child life in action. A warm welcome, oodles of fun, and new practical skills await. One RB World is more than a medical meeting that values both lived experience and scientific evidence. We are bonded by adversity, empathy, hope, and a desire to effect meaningful change. We know that it takes a village to raise a child, a survivor, a family, at all stages of life, and to create the future we desire. Rati still has a special way of bringing people together. One RB World is our ohana. In telling our story, I've included beautiful people who are no longer alive. It is important we continue to speak their names, tell their stories, and celebrate their lives. We See Hope, One RB World, and our child life work especially exist because of them. My RB story began with my father's experience in Kenya decades before I was born. Everyone. When I responded to Salome's email in 2004, I was struggling to hold on to life. I never imagined what would follow. Our histories constantly shape us. As parents, survivors, and professionals, our experiences and the influences around us form the stories we tell ourselves and others. Those stories colour our understanding of the world, and interaction with it. When we share our stories, we allow others to see the world as we do, and we find valuable insights. We begin to discern how our histories affect our experiences and actions, and we learn how to create the best care for all throughout life. We may not agree on everything, but when we truly listen to one another, we build bridges with empathy, knowledge, and understanding, and we drive practical action for patient care. Every voice matters, whether clinician, scientist, caregiver, or survivor. Whatever our story's path or outcome, it is a brushstroke of light on the broad canvas of hope we paint together. Sandra has just shared a brief history of RB. This week, we expand that history by shaping the future. Ratty, Daisy, their family stories, my own, and yours guide us forward. Sharing, listening, learning, and taking action beyond this meeting, we move closer to a day when every child, family, and survivor has optimal care and no child dies from retinoblastoma. Ua behe maku I ka halawai I komo mai mahalo nui loa. We have opened the meeting and you are welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.